The rain hammered against the glass storefront so hard that Brielle Thompson thought the windows might shatter. And when the door burst open with such force that the bell nearly flew off its hinge, she looked up from the antique dresser she was refinishing to see a man drenched from head to toe, breathing hard like he had been running for his life. "Please tell me you're still open," he said, water dripping from his dark hair onto the worn wooden floorboards of her furniture restoration shop. Brielle glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8, and she had meant to lock the door an hour ago, but she had been so absorbed in her work that time had slipped away. "Technically, no, but you look like you need help." The man exhaled in relief and stepped further inside, careful not to drip on any of the restored pieces that lined the walls. "My car died about 2 blocks from here. My phone's dead too. This storm came out of nowhere." "It's been building all evening," Brielle said, setting down her sandpaper and wiping her hands on her apron. She studied him more carefully now. Despite being soaked through, there was something striking about him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His clothes, though wet, were clearly expensive. "There's a phone behind the counter you can use. Thank you." He moved toward the counter, leaving a trail of water. "I'm Vincent by Vincent Vance." "Brielle Thompson. This is my shop." She handed him the cordless phone and watched as he dialed a number, stepping away slightly to give him privacy but not so far that she couldn't hear. "Marcus?" "Yeah, it's me. The Aston Martin decided to stop working on Maple Street. Can you send someone?" He paused, listening. "No, I'm fine. I found a furniture shop, Thompson Restorations." Another pause. "Tomorrow morning is fine. I'll figure something out for tonight." Brielle raised an eyebrow when he hung up. "Aston Martin," Vincent had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Company car." "Must be some company." She crossed her arms, leaning against one of her completed projects, a Victorian-era settee she had roof-upholstered in deep burgundy velvet. "It has its moments." Vincent looked around the shop with genuine interest. "You restored all of these yourself? Every piece?" "I buy damaged furniture, bring it back to life, and sell it. Been doing it for 5 years now." Pride crept into her voice despite herself. This shop was her entire world, everything she had worked for since leaving her corporate job to pursue something that actually made her happy. "This craftsmanship is incredible." Vincent approached a mahogany writing desk, running his fingers along the smooth surface. "The detail work here, the way you match the original carving pattern, most people wouldn't even notice that kind of thing was missing." Brielle blinked in surprise. "You know furniture. My grandmother collected antiques. She taught me to appreciate quality work." His smile was genuine, warming his entire face. This desk would have been her favorite. Thunder cracked overhead, so loud that Brielle jumped. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging the shop into darkness broken only by the occasional flash of lightning through the windows. "Perfect," Vincent muttered. Brielle fumbled her way to the storage closet, pulling out the emergency lantern she kept for situations exactly like this. The warm glow filled the immediate area around them. Happens sometimes in old buildings during bad storms. The power usually comes back within an hour or so. Sometimes longer. She grabbed a second lantern and lit it. "Look, there's a diner about 3 blocks down. They have a generator. You could wait there for your ride." Vincent glanced toward the windows, where rain was now coming down in sheets so thick they could barely see the street. "I think I'd drown before I made it 3 blocks. He had a point. Brielle chewed her bottom lip, considering her options. She did not know this man, but something about him felt trustworthy. Maybe it was the way he had admired her work, or the gentleness in his voice when he mentioned his grandmother. "I have coffee in the back room. It's not much, but at least it's dry." I don't want to impose. You're already dripping all over my floor. Might as well make yourself useful and keep me company while I wait out this storm." She gestured for him to follow her. The back room was small but comfortable, part workshop and part office. Brielle kept a mini fridge, a coffee maker, and a small space heater for the cold winter nights when she worked late. She handed Vincent a towel from her gym bag. "It's clean. Dry off." While Vincent toweled his hair, Brielle started the coffee maker, grateful that she had filled the water reservoir earlier. The familiar burble and hiss filled the comfortable silence. So what brings someone with an Aston Martin to this neighborhood at 8 on a Thursday night? Brielle asked, pulling two mismatched mugs from the shelf. Vincent draped the towel around his neck. "Honestly, I was driving aimlessly, had a frustrating day at work and needed to clear my head. This area of the city has character. The buildings have history." That's a diplomatic way of saying it's old and run down. No, I mean it. Everything downtown is glass and steel, soulless. But here, every building has a story. He accepted the coffee mug she offered. "Like this shop. How did you end up here?" Brielle settled into her desk chair, wrapping her hands around her own mug. "I used to work in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, made decent money, hated every second of it. I had been restoring furniture as a hobby since college. One day I was refinishing this old rocking chair my mom had given me, and I thought, why am I not doing this for a living? Quit my job the next month, drained my savings for this space, and never looked back. That takes courage, or stupidity. The jury's still out." But she smiled as she said it. "What about you? What do you do when you're not driving expensive cars through rainstorms?" Vincent hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "I work in real estate development, buying up old neighborhoods and turning them into soulless glass and steel. Sometimes, but I try to preserve what's worth saving." He met her eyes over the rim of his mug. "There's value in history, in craftsmanship. Not everything old needs to be torn down." They talked for the next hour, and Brielle found herself increasingly drawn to this stranger who had burst into her shop. Vincent was intelligent and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He asked genuine questions about her work, about the techniques she used, the challenges of running a small business. In turn, he told her about his grandmother, about growing up in a family that valued hard work and integrity, though he kept the details of his own career vague. When the lights suddenly flickered back on, Brielle almost felt disappointed. Vincent checked his watch, a simple but elegant piece that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "I should let you close up. You've been more than kind to a stranger." It wasn't entirely altruistic. "I hate storms, and having company made it less scary." Brielle stood, stretching muscles that had grown stiff from sitting. "Would you maybe want to have dinner sometime?" Vincent asked, and there was something vulnerable in the question that made Brielle's heart skip. "I'd like to hear more about your work, and I promise to arrive dry next time." Brielle surprised herself by agreeing without hesitation. "I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and Vincent waited with her until a sleek black car pulled up outside, driven by a man in a suit who looked entirely too professional to be a regular tow truck driver. Vincent thanked her again, holding her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then disappeared into the night. Brielle locked up the shop and drove home in a daze, replaying the evening in her mind. It was not until she was lying in bed that she realized she had not Googled Vincent Vance to see what kind of real estate developer drove an Aston Martin and had personal drivers at his beck and call. When she did search his name the next morning over breakfast, her coffee went cold as she stared at the screen. Vincent Vance was not just some real estate developer. He was the Vincent Vance, founder and CEO of Vance Properties, one of the largest commercial real estate firms on the East Coast. The articles called him a visionary, a millionaire who had built his empire from the ground up. His company was worth hundreds of millions, and he was only 32 years old. Brielle set down her phone, her stomach twisting with a complicated mix of emotions. Why had he been so vague about his work? And why was someone like him interested in having dinner with a small business owner who refinished old furniture in a run-down shop? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Good morning. This is Vincent. I was thinking dinner tomorrow night if you're available. There's a small Italian place I know that has the best carbonara you'll ever taste." Brielle stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "Tomorrow works. Should I dress up? Just be yourself. That's all I want." The Italian restaurant was tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place locals treasured and tourists never found. Vincent was already waiting when Brielle arrived, standing when he saw her approach. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that made his eyes look even darker, casual but put together in a way that spoke of money even without obvious labels. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made Brielle glad she had chosen the blue dress that brought out her eyes. "You look significantly drier than the last time I saw you," Vincent laughed, a rich sound that drew the attention of nearby diners. "Much drier, and my car is fixed, no thanks to the storm." The dinner was perfect. The food was incredible, but Brielle barely tasted it because she was too focused on Vincent. He was attentive without being overbearing, funny without trying too hard, and when he listened to her talk, she felt like she was the only person in the world. But as the evening wore on, the knowledge of who he really was sat heavy in Brielle's stomach. "You were right about the carbonara," she said as they shared tiramisu for dessert. "This place is amazing. How did you find it?" "The owner's family has run it for 3 generations. When I was looking to buy the building next door for a project, I met Antonio, the current owner. He was terrified I was going to drive up rents and force him out." Vincent's expression turned serious. "I structured the deal to actually lower his rent. This place is an institution. It deserves to stay. That was kind of you. It was the right thing to do." Vincent set down his fork. "Brielle, I need to tell you something." Her heart sank. Here it came, whatever complication she had been dreading. "Okay. I wasn't entirely honest about what I do. I mean, I told you real estate development, which is true, but I left out some details." He took a breath. "I own Vance Properties. It's a fairly large company." Brielle decided to save him the awkwardness. "I know. I Googled you after you left." Vincent looked surprised, then relieved. "And you still agreed to dinner?" "I almost didn't. I spent about an hour trying to figure out why someone like you would want to have dinner with someone like me." "Someone like you?" Vincent leaned forward. "You mean someone talented, passionate, and brave enough to chase what makes her happy instead of what makes her rich. Brielle, you're extraordinary. I refinish furniture in a shop that barely breaks even most months. You built a multi-million-dollar empire. I built a business. You create art. There's a difference." His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. "I didn't tell you right away because I'm tired of people seeing the company before they see me. You looked at my grandmother's desk and saw the craftsmanship. Most people would have seen a price tag." Brielle's resistance crumbled. She closed the distance between their hands, letting her fingers brush his. "I'm glad you walked into my shop during that storm." "So am I." Over the next few weeks, they fell into an easy rhythm. Vincent would stop by the shop after work, loosening his tie and rolling up his sleeves to help Brielle sand or paint or move heavy furniture. He was surprisingly good at it, his hands steady and sure. In return, Brielle would have dinner with him, letting him introduce her to his favorite hidden spots around the city. They kept things deliberately slow, both aware that they were building something real and not wanting to rush it. But the connection between them grew stronger with each passing day. Vincent made her laugh with stories about disastrous business meetings and difficult clients. Brielle taught him the patience required to strip decades of paint from an antique chair without damaging the wood beneath. One evening, about a month after they met, Vincent showed up at the shop looking troubled. "What's wrong?" Brielle asked immediately, setting aside the cabinet door she had been measuring. Vincent ran a hand through his hair. "I need to tell you about a project my company is working on. I've been putting it off because I didn't want it to affect us, but that's not fair to you." Brielle's stomach tightened with anxiety. "Okay. Vance Properties acquired several buildings in this neighborhood 6 months ago. We're planning a mixed-use development. Residential, retail, some office space. The goal is to revitalize the area while maintaining its character." He paused. "Your building isn't part of the acquisition, but the development will change this neighborhood significantly." "Change how?" "Property values will increase. Rent could go up when your lease is up for renewal. More competition from chain stores moving in." Vincent met her eyes. "I wanted you to know so you could prepare, and I want to help however I can." Brielle processed this information, her mind racing. "When does construction start?" 6 months. "But Brielle, I promise you, I will make sure you're protected. If your landlord tries to jack up your rent, I'll—" "Vincent, stop." She held up a hand. "I appreciate you telling me, and I appreciate that you want to help, but I don't want special treatment because I'm dating you. That wouldn't be right. I don't want you to lose your shop, neither do I, but I need to handle this myself." She softened her tone. "This business is mine. I built it without help, and I need to sustain it the same way. Can you understand that?" Vincent nodded slowly. "I can. But if you change your mind, the offer stands." That night, lying awake in her apartment, Brielle made a decision. She would need to increase revenue before rent negotiations came up. That meant taking on bigger projects, maybe hiring part-time help so she could complete more restorations. It would be hard work, but she had never been afraid of that. What she was afraid of was how deeply she was falling for Vincent Vance. The next few months were a whirlwind. Brielle threw herself into expanding her business, taking on commission work from interior designers and estate sales. Vincent supported her without overstepping, celebrating her wins and listening when she needed to vent about setbacks. Their relationship deepened, built on late-night conversations and stolen moments between their demanding schedules. Vincent's work kept him busy with the development project, and Brielle sometimes joined him for site visits, watching as he negotiated with contractors and architects. She saw a different side of him in those moments, authoritative and decisive, but always fair. He fought to preserve a historic church facade that others wanted to demolish, arguing that it could be incorporated into the new design. He insisted on affordable housing units when his partners pushed for all luxury condos. "You're not what I expected a millionaire developer to be like," Brielle told him one evening as they walked through the construction site, both wearing hard hats. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more cutthroat, I guess. Someone who only cared about profit." Vincent stopped walking, turning to face her. The setting sun cast long shadows across his face. "My grandfather was a carpenter. He taught my father, who built houses until he saved enough to start buying properties. They taught me that buildings aren't just investments. They're where people live their lives, fall in love, raise families. That matters more than profit margins." Brielle reached up to adjust his hard hat, which had slipped slightly. "Your grandmother and grandfather sound like they were wonderful people. They would have loved you. Especially your work." Vincent caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. Actually, I have something to ask you about that. Should I be worried? I hope not. The development will have a retail space on the ground floor, about 1,500 square feet with big windows facing the main street. I want you to have it. Brielle's heart jumped. Vincent, I told you market rate rent, no special treatment. Actually, probably slightly above market rate because it's prime location. His thumb traced circles on her palm, but it would be perfect for your shop. More space, more foot traffic, better visibility. This neighborhood is your home. You should be part of its future. She wanted to say yes immediately, but caution held her back. Let me think about it. I need to run the numbers, make sure it makes sense financially. Of course, no pressure. But there was pressure, Brielle realized as she lay in bed that night. Not from Vincent, but from her own heart. She was in love with him, deeply, terrifyingly in love. And that made every business decision feel personal, every offer feel complicated. The problem was she had no idea if Vincent felt the same way. He was affectionate, attentive, thoughtful, but he had never said he loved her, neither had she. They danced around the words, implied them through actions, but never spoke them aloud. Brielle was scared. Scared that if she said it first, she would discover that he cared for her but did not love her. Scared that the gap between their worlds was too wide to truly bridge. Scared that she was setting herself up for heartbreak. Summer turned to fall, and the development took shape. The neighborhood buzzed with mixed reactions. Some longtime residents worried about gentrification. Others were excited about new opportunities. Brielle found herself caught in the middle, grateful for Vincent's efforts to preserve the area's character while understanding the concerns about change. Her own business was thriving. The commission work had paid off, and she had hired a college student named Maya to help with basic prep work. When Brielle finally reviewed the numbers for the new retail space Vincent had offered, they were actually feasible. Scary, but feasible. I want to do it, she told Vincent over dinner at his apartment. The retail space, if the offer still stands. Vincent's face lit up. Really, Brielle, that's incredible. I'm terrified, she admitted. It's a huge step, but I think it's the right one. You're going to be amazing. Vincent pulled her into his arms, and Brielle let herself sink into his embrace, breathing in the scent of his cologne. She wanted to tell him that she loved him. The words sat on her tongue, ready to spill out, but fear kept them locked inside. Autumn deepened into winter. Brielle started planning the move to her new location, which would happen in the spring once construction was complete. Vincent helped her design the layout, and they spent hours sketching floor plans and arguing good-naturedly about the placement of work tables and display areas. They celebrated Thanksgiving with Vincent's parents at their home in Connecticut, a sprawling estate that reminded Brielle of just how different their backgrounds were. But Vincent's mother, Patricia, welcomed her warmly, and his father, Victor Sr., spent an hour asking detailed questions about furniture restoration techniques. He likes you, Vincent whispered as they drove back to the city that night. I can tell. Your mom kept showing me photo albums of you as a kid. I think she was trying to embarrass you. Did it work? Those suspenders were a choice, Vincent groaned. I was 7. Fashion was not my priority. Brielle laughed, but her mood turned somber as they got closer to the city. Vincent, can I ask you something? Always. Where do you see this going? Us, I mean. She twisted her hands in her lap. We've been together for almost 6 months now, but we've never really talked about the future. Vincent was quiet for a moment. I see us together. Building something lasting. I know we come from different worlds, but Brielle, I don't care about that. You make me happy in a way I've never experienced before. You make me happy too. She wanted to say more, to tell him that happiness did not even begin to cover what she felt. But the words stuck in her throat. Christmas came and went. Vincent gave her a set of antique woodworking tools he had tracked down through an auction house, each piece over 100 years old and still perfectly functional. Brielle gave him a restored desk that had belonged to his grandmother, which she had secretly purchased from his mother and spent months bringing back to its original glory. Vincent actually had tears in his eyes when he saw it. "How did you? Your mom and I have been conspiring. She sent me photos of what it looked like originally." Brielle ran her hand along the smooth wood. "It's been in storage for years because it was too damaged to display, but the bones were good. It just needed someone to care enough to fix it. It's perfect. You're perfect." Vincent kissed her, deep and tender, and Brielle felt the unspoken words pass between them. But still, neither of them said it aloud. January brought a cold snap that froze the city solid. Brielle spent long hours at the shop, trying to complete as many projects as possible before the move. Vincent was equally busy with final inspections and permits for the development. One night in late January, Brielle was working alone in the shop when her phone rang. Vincent's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, I was just thinking about you," she answered. "Brielle." His voice was tight, controlled in a way that immediately set off alarm bells. "I need you to come to my office, now." "What's wrong, please? Just come." She dropped everything, grabbed her coat, and drove to the gleaming tower downtown that housed Vance Properties' headquarters. The security guard waved her through with a nod of recognition, and she took the elevator to the 30th floor. Vincent's assistant looked worried. "He's in his office. Go right in." Brielle found Vincent standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. His shoulders were rigid with tension. "Vincent, you're scaring me. What happened?" He turned to face her, and she saw the anguish in his eyes. "There's a problem with the development. A big problem." "What kind of problem?" "Structural issues with one of the existing buildings we incorporated into the design. It's worse than the initial inspections showed. We have to basically tear it down and rebuild, which means delays, cost overruns." He dragged a hand through his hair. "My partners are pushing to cut corners elsewhere to make up the difference. They want to eliminate the affordable housing units and the community space. They want to raise rents on the commercial spaces to offset losses." Brielle felt her stomach drop. "Including my space. They're proposing a 20% increase over what we discussed." Vincent looked like he wanted to put his fist through the wall. "I've been fighting them all day. I told them we made commitments to this community and we're going to honor them. But Brielle, I need you to know that if it comes down to it, I will walk away from this entire project before I let them go back on what I promised you." "Vincent, you can't do that. This project is huge for your company. You're more important than any project." The words hung in the air between them. Brielle's heart was racing. "What are you saying?" Vincent crossed the room, taking her hands in his. "I'm saying that I love you. I'm in love with you, Brielle. I have been for months, but I was too afraid to say it because I didn't know if you felt the same way. I didn't want to pressure you or make you feel like you owed me something because of who I am or what I can do for your business." Brielle stared at him, her mind reeling. He loved her. Vincent Vance, millionaire developer, loved her, and she had been so caught up in her own fears that she had never seen that he was just as scared as she was. "You love me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, completely. And I need you to know that whatever happens with this development, with your shop, with anything else, my feelings for you aren't tied to any of it. You could tell me right now that you don't want the retail space, that you never want to see me again, and I would still love you." Tears were streaming down Brielle's face now. "You really mean that? Every word? Vincent, I love you too." The words burst out of her like they had been caged too long. "I've been in love with you for so long, but I was terrified to admit it. I thought maybe you just cared about me, liked me, but love. I didn't think someone like you could actually love someone like me. Someone like me. Vincent's thumb wiped away her tears. Brielle, I'm just a man who got lucky in business. You're an artist, a creator, someone who makes beautiful things with her own hands. You're brave and passionate and kind. I've been waiting to hear you say you love me for months. I was starting to think it would never happen. I love you, Brielle said again, because now that she had said it once, she could not stop. I love you so much it scares me. I love how you care about preserving history, and how you fight for what's right, and how you helped me move furniture, even though you had no idea what you were doing at first. Vincent laughed through his own tears and kissed her. It was different from every other kiss they had shared, deeper and more honest because there were no more walls between them. When they finally broke apart, Brielle rested her forehead against his. What are we going to do about your partners? I have some ideas. But first, I need to know if you still want that retail space. Whatever happens, wherever it ends up being, I'll make sure you have room to grow your business. I want it. I want to be part of what you're building in that neighborhood, but Vincent, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't sacrifice your business for me. We'll figure this out together, but I won't be the reason you lose everything you've worked for. Vincent cupped her face in his hands. You're not a sacrifice. You're my priority. There's a difference. They spent the next week locked in intense negotiations. Vincent brought in additional investors who shared his vision for responsible development. He restructured the financing to absorb most of the unexpected costs without cutting the affordable housing or raising commercial rents beyond reasonable levels. It was exhausting work that required him to call in every favor and leverage every relationship he had built over the years. Brielle supported him through it all, bringing him dinner when he worked late and listening when he needed to vent. She also met with some of the other business owners who would be moving into the development, forming a coalition to present their needs and concerns directly to Vincent's partners. In the end, they won. The development would proceed as originally planned with only minor adjustments. The affordable housing stayed. The community space stayed. Brielle's retail space stayed at the agreed-upon rent. The night they finalized the deal, Vincent took Brielle to the construction site. It was late, past midnight, and the only light came from the street lamps and the stars above. "This is where your shop will be," Vincent said, pointing to a corner space with huge windows. "You'll have morning light here, perfect for working. And there's a storage room in the back, plus a small office." Brielle tried to picture it, her tools and materials in this space, her restored furniture displayed in those windows. "It's going to be amazing. You're going to be amazing." Vincent wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together in the cold, looking at the future they were building. "I'm proud of you," Brielle said. "You could have taken the easy way out, cut those corners, but you didn't. You fought for what was right. I learned from the best. You walked away from a safe corporate job to chase your passion, even when it was scary. That's real courage." They moved Brielle's shop in April, when the first warm days of spring broke through the last remnants of winter. Vincent took the day off to help, along with Maya and several of Vincent's employees who volunteered their time. By evening, Thompson Restorations had a new home, bigger and brighter and full of possibility. That night, exhausted and covered in dust, Brielle and Vincent sat on the floor of the empty shop, eating pizza straight from the box. "I can't believe this is real," Brielle said, looking around at the space. "A year ago, I was working alone in that old building, barely scraping by. And now I'm here with you and everything feels possible. It is possible, all of it." Vincent set down his pizza and reached into his pocket, "Which is why I want to ask you something." Brielle's heart stopped when she saw him pull out a small velvet box. Brielle Thompson, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. You've made me better, made me see that success isn't just about building things but about building them the right way, with integrity and purpose. He opened the box to reveal a ring, simple and elegant with a single diamond that caught the light. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to help you restore furniture and argue about floor plans and build a future together. Will you marry me? Brielle was crying again, but this time they were tears of pure joy. Yes, yes, of course yes. Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, like it had always belonged there. They kissed surrounded by sawdust and the smell of fresh paint, and Brielle thought it was the most perfect moment of her life. They were married that December, a year and a half after Vincent had stumbled into her shop during that rainstorm. The ceremony took place in the historic church Vincent had fought to preserve, its old stone walls decorated with flowers and candlelight. Brielle wore a simple ivory dress, and Vincent could not stop staring at her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Patricia cried through the entire ceremony. Victor Sr. gave a toast at the reception about how his son had always known how to see the value in what others overlooked, and that applied to business and to love. Maya gave a speech about how Brielle had given her a chance when she was just a college kid looking for work, and how she had learned that taking risks on people was always worth it. But the moment Brielle treasured most came late in the evening, when she and Vincent slipped away from the reception to stand outside in the quiet winter night. Happy? Vincent asked, his arm around her waist. Incredibly. Although I still can't believe you said you had been waiting to hear me say I loved you. You could have said it first, you know. I was terrified, Vincent admitted. Here I am, this guy who negotiates million-dollar deals without blinking, and I was terrified to tell the woman I loved how I felt. I was terrified too. I think we wasted a lot of time being scared. Then let's not waste any more. He kissed her forehead. I love you, Brielle Vance. I love you too, she smiled, testing out her new name. That's going to take some getting used to. You have the rest of our lives to practice. 2 years later, Brielle stood in Thompson Restorations, watching as Maya directed a customer to a newly restored dining table. The shop was thriving beyond her wildest dreams. She had hired 2 more employees and was fielding commission requests from interior designers across the region. Her work had been featured in several design magazines, and she had a waiting list of clients. But the best part was the door that connected her shop to the small office space next door, where Vincent had relocated his own office. He claimed he liked being able to walk to work, but Brielle knew he just wanted to be close to her. She walked through that connecting door now to find Vincent on a conference call, his sleeves rolled up and his tie loosened. He looked up when she entered, his face breaking into the smile he reserved just for her. "Gentlemen, I need to call you back," he said into the phone, then hung up. "Hey, beautiful, finished for the day. Almost. I wanted to tell you something." Brielle moved to sit on the edge of his desk. "You know how we've been talking about starting a family?" Vincent's eyes widened. We're having a baby." She pulled out the pregnancy test she had taken that morning. "I'm about 6 weeks along." Vincent stood so fast his chair rolled backward. He pulled Brielle into his arms, holding her like she was made of glass. "Really? We're really having a baby, really?" Brielle laughed at his stunned expression. "I wanted to tell you right away. I couldn't wait." "I love you," Vincent said, kissing her. "I love you so much. I love you too. I'm not scared to say it anymore. Neither am I." Their daughter was born the following spring, a tiny girl with Vincent's dark hair and Brielle's blue eyes. They named her Victoria after Vincent's grandfather, and from the moment she entered the world, She was the center of their universe. Brielle cut back her hours at the shop, hiring a manager so she could spend more time at home. Vincent did the same, turning down projects that would have taken him away from his family. They had both learned that the best things in life were not built with money or ambition, but with time and love. On Victoria's first birthday, they threw a party at their home, a renovated brownstone in the neighborhood where they had first met. The living room was filled with restored furniture from Brielle's shop, each piece with its own story. Friends and family crowded the space, celebrating the little girl who was already trying to walk, stumbling between her parents on unsteady legs. Later, after the guests had left and Victoria was asleep in her crib, Brielle and Vincent sat in their bedroom, exhausted but happy. "Do you ever think about that rainstorm?" Brielle asked, her head on Vincent's shoulder. "If your car had not broken down, if you had not walked into my shop that night." "All the time," Vincent admitted. "Best car trouble I ever had. I was so scared to tell you I loved you. I wasted so much time being afraid. We both did, but we got there in the end." He tilted her chin up to look at him. "And I've been waiting my whole life to find someone like you, Brielle. The wait was worth it. You really had been waiting to hear me say it, had not you, that I loved you. Every single day, I would look at you and think, please let her feel this too. Please let her love me the way I love her. And then that night in my office when you finally said the words, it was like everything in my life finally made sense." Brielle kissed him softly. "I love you, Vincent Vance. I'll never get tired of saying it." "Good. Because I'll never get tired of hearing it." 5 years later, Thompson Restorations had expanded to 3 locations across the city, each one managed by someone Brielle had trained personally. She still worked on special projects herself, the pieces that required her specific touch, but mostly she focused on teaching others her craft. She had even started offering classes on weekends, sharing her knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn. Vincent's company had grown too, but he had shifted his focus to sustainable development and historic preservation, using his resources to save buildings that others wanted to tear down. He had become known as a developer who actually cared about communities, and his projects were models for responsible growth. Victoria was in kindergarten now, a bright and curious child who loved helping her mother sand furniture and her father read blueprints. They had also welcomed a son, Victor III, who was 2 years old and already showing signs of being as stubborn as his father. On their 6th wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised Brielle with a gift. He drove her to the old neighborhood where they had first met, parking in front of her original shop. "It's for sale," Vincent said. "I thought maybe we could buy it, turn it into something special." Brielle stared at the familiar storefront, memories flooding back. "Like what?" "A community workshop. Free classes for kids and adults who want to learn restoration, woodworking, any kind of craft. We could call it the Victoria Thompson Workshop after our daughter and your maiden name." Tears filled Brielle's eyes. "Vincent, that's perfect. You showed me that everyone deserves a chance to chase their passion, not just the people who can afford it. I want to give that chance to others." They bought the building and spent 6 months renovating it, keeping the original character while updating the equipment and safety features. The workshop opened on a Saturday in October, and the turnout was beyond anything they had imagined. People of all ages came to learn to create, to discover talents they did not know they had. Brielle taught a class that first day, showing a group of teenagers how to strip and refinish an old wooden chair. As she worked, she looked up to see Vincent watching her from the doorway, their children playing nearby. He caught her eye and mouthed the words, "I love you." She smiled and mouthed them back, still feeling that same flutter in her chest that she had felt the first time she said them out loud in his office all those years ago. That night, after the workshop closed and they had tucked the children into bed, Brielle and Vincent sat in their living room, exhausted but content. "We've built a good life," Vincent said, pulling Brielle close. "The best life," she agreed. "And to think, it all started because you walked into my shop during a rainstorm." "I was waiting for you," Vincent said. "I did not know it at the time, but I was waiting for someone like you to show me what really matters. I was waiting too. Waiting for someone to love who would love me back just as much. Someone who would see past the differences between us and recognize that we're perfect for each other. We are perfect for each other." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "And I'm grateful every single day that you finally admitted you loved me. Do you know, I had started to think you never would. I was planning all these grand gestures, trying to figure out how to make you feel safe enough to say it." Brielle laughed. "What kind of grand gestures?" "I was going to rent out the entire city zoo for a private tour, because you mentioned once that you loved the penguin exhibit. I was going to commission an ice sculpture of us for your shop. I had all these ridiculous ideas. The ice sculpture would have been weird. I was desperate." He tightened his arms around her. "I loved you so much, and I needed to hear you say it back. When you finally did, it was the best moment of my life. Well, tied with our wedding day and when our kids were born. It was one of my best moments, too. It felt like I had been holding my breath for months, and suddenly I could breathe again." Brielle twisted the wedding ring on her finger, the diamond catching the lamplight. "I think I was afraid that if I admitted how much I loved you, I would lose myself somehow. Like loving someone that much meant giving up who I was. And now I know that loving you made me more myself, not less. You believed in my work, supported my dreams, pushed me to take risks I was too scared to take alone. You made me braver. You made me better," Vincent said quietly. "Before you, I was so focused on building bigger, earning more, proving myself. You taught me to slow down and appreciate what matters. Our family, our community, the legacy we leave behind. Those things are worth more than any amount of money." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights through their window. Brielle thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that rainy night in her old shop to this moment, surrounded by the life they had built together. "You have any regrets?" Vincent asked suddenly. Brielle considered the question. "I regret waiting so long to tell you I loved you. We could have had those extra months of being completely honest about our feelings. I regret not telling you first. I was the one who should have been brave enough to say it. We were both scared. But Vincent, we got to where we needed to be. That's what matters." "True." He shifted to look at her directly. "You know what I don't regret? Walking into your shop that night, getting caught in that storm, having my car break down on the one street where I would find you. If I believed in fate, I would say it was meant to be." "Maybe it was," Brielle said. "Maybe we were always going to find each other somehow. I like that idea." Over the next decade, their lives continued to evolve. Brielle published a book about furniture restoration that became a surprise bestseller, leading to a series of educational videos and eventually a documentary about craftsmanship and the value of preserving history. Vincent's company became a leader in sustainable development, winning awards for projects that balanced progress with preservation. Their children grew. Victoria developed a love for architecture, spending hours drawing buildings and studying famous structures. Victor showed more interest in the business side of things, always asking his father questions about deals and negotiations. They had one more child, a daughter named Grace, who inherited Brielle's artistic talent and could often be found sketching or painting. Through it all, Brielle and Vincent remained each other's constants. They still worked in connected offices, still stole moments throughout the day just to see each other. They still said, "I love you" multiple times a day, never taking the words for granted because they both remembered what it was like to be too afraid to say them. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Vincent planned a surprise. He took Brielle back to the Italian restaurant where they had their first official date, the same one Antonio's family still ran. The food was just as good, and the atmosphere was just as warm. "I have something for you," Vincent said over dessert, sliding an envelope across the table. Brielle opened it to find a deed. "What is this?" "Remember that building where your original shop was? The one we turned into a community workshop," Vincent smiled. "I'm transferring ownership to you. It should be yours completely, no strings attached." "Vincent, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not enough." "Brielle, you've given me everything. A home, a family, a purpose beyond just making money. That workshop has changed hundreds of lives because of your vision. It should have your name on it officially." Brielle felt tears threaten. Even after 20 years, this man could still make her cry with his thoughtfulness. "Thank you. For this. For everything. Thank you for taking a chance on a soaking wet stranger who barged into your shop." Vincent reached across the table to take her hand. "Thank you for eventually admitting you loved me, even though I had to wait way too long to hear it." Brielle laughed through her tears. "Are you ever going to let me live that down?" "Never. Do you know how many nights I laid awake trying to figure out if you felt the same way? How many times I almost said it first but chickened out? We were quite a pair, were not we? Both in love, both too scared to admit it. But we figured it out eventually. That's what counts." Vincent's expression grew serious. "I meant what I said in my office that night all those years ago. I had been waiting to hear you say you loved me. Not just because I needed to know you felt the same way, but because I knew that when you finally said it, you would mean it completely. You don't do anything halfway, Brielle. I knew that if you loved me, you would love me with everything you had." "And I was right." "You were right," Brielle agreed softly. "I do love you with everything I have, every day more than the day before. Same here. Still waiting to hear it every morning, still grateful every time you say it." They finished dinner and walked through the neighborhood, hand in hand like they had done so many times before. The area had changed dramatically since that first night, filled now with thriving businesses and renovated buildings. But the character remained, the sense of history and community that Vincent had fought so hard to preserve. "We did good," Brielle said, looking around. "We did great," Vincent corrected. "Look at what we built together, not just the buildings and businesses, but the family, the legacy. Our kids are growing up knowing that success means making a positive impact, not just making money. That's because of you. It's because of both of us. You had the vision and the resources, I had the passion and the perspective. Together, we made something meaningful. The perfect team." They stopped in front of the building that housed both Thompson Restorations and Vincent's office, looking up at the sign that bore both their names. Brielle remembered the first time she had seen this space, empty and full of potential. She remembered being scared about taking such a big risk, about tying her business to Vincent's project, about letting herself depend on someone else. But she had done it anyway, because she loved him and trusted him. And that leap of faith had led to everything good in her life. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked. "I'm thinking about how scared I was to love you, how I convinced myself that someone like you could not possibly feel the same way about someone like me, how I spent months guarding my heart because I thought it was the safe thing to do. And I was wrong. Loving you was the best decision I ever made. Even if it had not worked out, even if you had not loved me back, it still would have been worth it to feel that deeply about someone." Vincent pulled her close, wrapping her in his arms. It worked out because it was always going to work out. We were meant for each other, Brielle. I truly believe that. I believe it too. They stayed there for a long moment. Two people who had built a life together through hard work, trust, and love that neither of them had been brave enough to admit at first, but had grown strong enough to sustain them through everything. Years continued to pass. Victoria graduated from college with a degree in architecture and joined her father's company, bringing fresh ideas and her mother's eye for beauty to every project. Victor went to business school and started his own company focused on sustainable materials. Grace got a scholarship to art school and was making a name for herself as a sculptor. Brielle and Vincent became grandparents when Victoria had twin boys, and they threw themselves into the role with enthusiasm. Vincent taught the boys to appreciate old buildings, while Brielle showed them how to work with their hands. The cycle continued, values and skills passed down through generations. On what would have been their 30th anniversary, Vincent had a heart attack. It was mild, the doctors said, caught early enough that with lifestyle changes and medication, he would be fine. But it scared them both, a reminder that time was precious and finite. Recovering at home, Vincent held Brielle's hand and said, "I've been thinking about what I would regret if things had gone differently. And you know what I keep coming back to?" "What?" "Those months when we loved each other but had not said it yet. The time we wasted being afraid." He squeezed her hand. "I don't want to waste another moment, Brielle. I want to make sure you know every single day how much I love you, how grateful I am that you're my wife, my partner, the mother of my children." "I know," Brielle said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've always known. But I understand what you mean. Life is too short to hold back, to protect ourselves from getting hurt. I learned that lesson when I finally told you I loved you all those years ago. Best night of my life, hearing those words from you. Best night of mine, too, finally being brave enough to say them." Vincent recovered fully, and they approached their later years with renewed appreciation for each time they had together. They traveled, they spent time with their children and grandchildren, and they continued to work on projects that mattered to them. The workshop Brielle had founded now had branches in 5 cities, teaching thousands of people every year. Vincent's company had become a model for ethical development, proving that profit and principle could coexist. But the thing they treasured most was each other. Even after decades together, they still found new things to love about one another. Vincent still stopped by Brielle's workshop to watch her work, still mesmerized by the way her hands moved with such skill and certainty. Brielle still felt her heart skip when Vincent walked into a room, still thought he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. And they never stopped saying, "I love you." The words were as much a part of their daily routine as breathing, spoken over morning coffee and whispered in the dark before sleep. They said it when things were good, and when things were hard, when they were happy, and when they were scared. The words were a promise, a comfort, a celebration. One evening, sitting on their porch and watching the sunset, Brielle turned to Vincent and said, "Do you remember when you told me you had been waiting to hear me say I loved you?" Vincent smiled. "How could I forget? You looked so surprised." "I was surprised. I had no idea you felt that way, that you had been holding your breath the same way I had." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "But you know what? I'm glad we both waited until we were ready. Those words meant something when we finally said them. They were real and honest and true." "They still are," Vincent said. "Every single time." "Every single time," Brielle agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. They had built a beautiful life together, filled with love and family and work that mattered. They had overcome their fears, taken risks, and chosen each other every single day. And it had all started with a rainstorm, a broken-down car, and two people brave enough to eventually admit what their hearts had known all along. "I love you, Brielle Vance," Vincent said, breaking the silence. "I love you too, Vincent Vance," Brielle replied. "Always have, always will." "Good," Vincent said, "because I'm still waiting to hear it even after all these years. And I hope I never stop waiting, never stop feeling grateful every time you say those words." "You won't," Brielle promised, "and neither will I." As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars appeared, they sat together, two souls who had found each other against the odds and built something lasting. Their love story had not been perfect, but it had been real, and in the end, that was all that mattered. The words, "I love you," hung in the air between them, as powerful and meaningful as they had been the first time they were spoken. A testament to the enduring power of finally being brave enough to admit the truth of your heart.